The Instagram notification arrived at 9:47 p.m. while I was reviewing financial statements in my home office. Elena had tagged me in a post about her boutique chain's latest expansion. The photo showed her cutting a ribbon at the grand opening of her 7th location, surrounded by local dignitaries and fashion industry executives. The caption read, "Success runs in the family. So grateful for this journey and everyone who believed in Elena's boutiques from day one. Some of us were born to build empires. Flexed biceps sparkles. #entrepreneur life. #family business. #not everyone." The comments were already pouring in. Congratulations from fashion bloggers, praise from business mentors, and unfortunately, several remarks from family members about how some people get the business gene and others don't. My cousin Ashley had written, "So inspiring. Unlike some people who are content with ordinary jobs." Eyes, with 3 laughing emojis. I scrolled through 47 comments before reaching Elena's reply to Ashley. "Thanks, babe. You know what they say, some people are dreamers and doers, others prefer the safety of steady paychecks. Both have their place." Face blowing a kiss. 532 likes and counting. I left my own comment. "So true. Congratulations on everything you've built. Party popper." Then I opened my secure messaging app and typed a message to Patricia Morrison, my corporate accountant. "Please initiate termination of all partnership agreements with Elena's Boutiques LLC, effective immediately. Full withdrawal of invested capital, $75 million total. I want this processed first thing Monday morning." Patricia responded within minutes. "Are you certain about this timing? The boutiques are performing well and Q4 is typically their strongest quarter. This withdrawal will create significant cash flow issues." I typed back, "I'm certain. Please also terminate the commercial lease guarantees and cancel the credit line backing. Complete financial separation." "Understood. This will likely force emergency restructuring. Should I prepare documentation for the shell companies as well?" "Yes. I want all connections severed. Trinity Holdings, Cascade Investments and Meridian Capital full withdrawal from all Elena's boutiques ventures. I'll have everything ready Monday at 9 a.m. Fair warning, this will probably trigger immediate panic once the numbers hit their books." I set my phone aside and returned to my financial reports. Elena's boutiques was performing well, just as Patricia had noted. Revenue had grown 340% over the past 3 years, profit margins were healthy, and the expansion strategy was solid. It was by any measure a successful business. What Elena didn't know was that her successful business had been built entirely on my anonymous investment. Every expansion, every new location, every marketing campaign, every piece of inventory, all of it funded through shell companies that traced back to me. The irony was particularly sharp tonight. Elena's Instagram post celebrating her empire was being liked and shared by hundreds of people who had no idea they were celebrating my money being used to fund someone who publicly mocked me for lacking entrepreneurial spirit. Growing up, Elena had always been the family's golden child entrepreneur. She started selling friendship bracelets in middle school, had a successful babysitting business in high school, and launched her first online boutique during college. By the time she graduated, everyone knew Elena was destined for business success. I meanwhile had been the academic one. Good grades, steady progression through school, practical degree in finance. The family narrative was clear. Elena was the creative visionary and I was the reliable worker bee. What they didn't see was that I'd been using my finance background to build something much larger than anyone realized. While Elena was launching her first boutique with a $15,000 loan from our parents, I was making my first million through strategic investments in emerging markets. While she was celebrating her second location, I was managing a portfolio worth $50 million. By the time Elena needed serious capital for expansion, I had the resources to help her. And I wanted to help her. She was my sister and her business plans were genuinely solid. So I created Trinity Holdings LLC and became her anonymous anchor investor. Elena thought she'd impressed sophisticated investors with her pitch decks and business acumen. She didn't know she was presenting to shell companies controlled by her supposedly unsuccessful sister. Over 3 years, I'd invested $75 million in Elena's boutiques through various entities. Equipment financing, lease guarantees, expansion capital, inventory funding, marketing budgets, all of it came from me. Elena's brilliant business instincts, were actually just having unlimited access to capital from someone who wanted her to succeed. But tonight's Instagram post had clarified something important for me. Elena wasn't grateful for her success. She was using it as a weapon against family members she perceived as less accomplished. And she had no idea she was attacking the person who'd made her success possible. I spent the weekend reviewing all my investments connected to family members. The numbers were staggering. Beyond Elena's boutiques, I'd anonymously funded my brother Marcus's restaurant chain, $45 million, my cousin Derek's tech startup, $23 million, and my uncle's real estate development projects, $67 million. Combined with smaller investments in various family ventures, I'd deployed over $230 million to support my relatives' businesses. All while they treated me like the family's cautionary tale about playing it safe and lacking ambition. Monday morning arrived gray and cold. I was in my office by 7:30 a.m., reviewing the final documentation for the Elena's Boutiques withdrawal. Patricia had prepared everything perfectly: termination notices, capital withdrawal authorizations, lease guarantee cancellations, and credit line closures. At exactly 9 a.m. I authorized the transfers. Elena's first call came at 10:23 a.m. I let it go to voicemail. Hey, hope you're having a good Monday. Quick question, do you know anything about investment firms? I'm getting some confusing calls from our financial partners, and I thought maybe your accounting background might help me understand what's happening. Call me back. Her tone was still upbeat, still confident. She clearly thought this was a minor administrative issue that her practical sister could help resolve. The second call came at 11:47 a.m. Okay, this is getting weird. Trinity Holdings just terminated our partnership agreement? Like, completely. They want all their money back immediately. $75 million. That's not how investments work, right? Something must be wrong. Call me back ASAP. Now there was tension in her voice. Still manageable, but the first signs of real concern. By 1:15 p.m., Elena had called 6 more times. The voicemails told the story of her morning. Confusion turning to worry, turning to panic as she realized the scope of what was happening. All 3 investors pulled out. All of them. On the same day. That can't be a coincidence. Someone is targeting my business. I need to figure out who's behind this and why they want to destroy me. At 2:30 p.m. my assistant buzzed my intercom. Ms. Rodriguez? Your sister Elena is here to see you. She says it's urgent. I looked up from my computer screen, where I was reviewing new investment opportunities in sustainable fashion companies. Send her in. Elena burst through my office door looking frantic. Her usually perfect hair was disheveled, her makeup smudged, and she was clutching a folder of papers against her chest like a shield. Thank God you're here, she said, rushing to my desk. I need your help. Someone is trying to destroy my business. I gestured to the chair across from my desk. Sit down. Tell me what's happening. Elena collapsed into the chair and spread her papers across my desk. Financial statements, termination notices, legal documents, all stamped with the logos of Trinity Holdings, Cascade Investments, and Meridian Capital. All my investors pulled out, she said, her voice shaking. $75 million gone. Just like that. They want immediate repayment of all invested capital, plus they're canceling my lease guarantees and credit lines. My accountant says this will bankrupt me within 30 days. I picked up the Trinity Holdings termination notice and read it carefully. Patricia had done excellent work. Every detail was precise and legally bulletproof. This says they're exercising their right to withdraw capital with 30-day notice, I said. That's pretty standard language for investment agreements. Standard. Elena's voice pitched higher. There's nothing standard about 3 major investors coordinating to destroy a successful business. Something else is going on here. Someone convinced them to pull out. Someone who wants to hurt me. I set down the paperwork and looked at my sister directly. Elena was 32 years old, objectively successful, well-respected in her industry. She'd built something real and valuable even if it had been subsidized by my money. And right now she was watching it all collapse without understanding why. Elena, I said quietly, what makes you think someone wants to hurt you? Because the timing is suspicious. She pulled out her phone and scrolled to her Instagram post from Friday night. I posted about the new location, about success running in the family, and then boom, Monday morning everything falls apart. Someone saw that post and decided to take me down. I glanced at the post again. Still up, still accumulating likes and comments. Who would want to take you down? I don't know. Maybe a competitor? Maybe someone who's jealous of my success? Maybe someone who thinks I don't deserve what I've built. Elena was spiraling now, her paranoia building as she tried to make sense of what felt like a coordinated attack. I watched her struggle with the cognitive dissonance of her situation. She knew she was talented and hardworking, but she couldn't understand why that hadn't been enough to maintain her investors' confidence. Let me ask you something, I said. In your Instagram post you mentioned that success runs in the family, but not everyone. Who were you referring to? Elena looked confused by the question. I don't know. It was just a general comment about how some people are more entrepreneurial than others. But you tagged me in the post. Yeah, because you're family. I always tag family members in my business posts. And then you commented about dreamers and doers versus people who prefer steady paychecks. Elena shifted uncomfortably in her chair. I was just making conversation with Ashley. She was asking about family dynamics. Were you referring to me specifically? Elena paused, seeming to realize for the first time that this line of questioning might be relevant to her current crisis. I mean, you do prefer stability over risk. That's not an insult, it's just a fact. Is it a fact? Well, yeah. You work the same job, live in the same apartment, drive the same car. You've never started a business or taken any major financial risks. You're risk-averse. I opened my laptop and turned the screen toward Elena. My investment portfolio dashboard was displaying real-time valuations across dozens of holdings. Total assets under management, $892 million. Elena stared at the screen. What is this? My investment portfolio. She leaned forward, reading the numbers more carefully. Technology startups, real estate developments, international markets, private equity funds, venture capital investments. Page after page of holdings worth millions of dollars each. This says you have $800 million, she whispered. Assets under management, I corrected. My personal net worth is lower. About $430 million. Elena's face went through several expressions: confusion, disbelief, shock, and finally, a dawning understanding that made her complexion go pale. The shell companies, she said slowly. Trinity Holdings, Cascade Investments, Meridian Capital. Those are yours. Those are mine. You've been funding my business. For 3 years. $75 million. Correct. Elena sat back in her chair, staring at me like she'd never seen me before. But why? Why would you invest in my boutiques without telling me? Because I believed in your business plan and I wanted to help my sister succeed. But why pull out now? Why destroy everything I've built? I turned my laptop back toward me and pulled up Elena's Instagram post. Read your caption again. Elena looked at her phone, scanning the text she'd written Friday night. I don't understand. Success runs in the family. Well, not everyone. You posted photos of a business expansion funded entirely by my money, and you used that success to mock family members who you think are less accomplished. I wasn't mocking anyone specifically. You tagged me in a post celebrating your success, then commented about how some people prefer steady paychecks over entrepreneurial dreams. You were referring to me. Elena's voice became defensive. I was making a general point about different personality types. Some people are risk takers and others aren't. That's not personal. Elena, you used my money to build a business empire, then used that empire to publicly demonstrate why you're superior to family members like me who lack entrepreneurial spirit. The words hung in the air between us. Elena looked down at the termination notices spread across my desk, then back up at me. I didn't know it was your money, she said quietly. Would it have mattered if you did? Elena was quiet for a long moment. I don't know. Let me ask you this, I continued. If you had known that your business was entirely funded by your risk-averse sister who prefers steady paychecks, would you have posted about how success runs in the family but not everyone? Probably not. Would you have made comments about dreamers and doers versus people who choose safety? No. So your willingness to mock family members for lacking business success was contingent on believing that you had achieved your success independently? Elena's shoulders sagged. When you put it like that, it sounds terrible. It was terrible, I said. You used success that I made possible to demonstrate your superiority over the person who made it possible. Elena buried her face in her hands. I had no idea. I thought I was being supported by sophisticated investors who believed in my vision. You were being supported by a sophisticated investor who believed in your vision. Me. So what happens now? Elena asked without looking up. Do I lose everything? Do the boutiques close? Do I file for bankruptcy? I considered her questions carefully. Elena's business was fundamentally sound: good locations, strong brand recognition, loyal customer base, solid operational systems. The only thing it lacked was capital, which I had withdrawn. That depends, I said. Elena looked up. On what? On whether you've learned anything from this experience. I've learned that I'm an ungrateful bitch who mocked the person funding my entire life. I shook my head. That's not what I want you to learn. Then what? I want you to understand that success isn't just about individual talent and hard work. It's also about support systems, access to capital, family networks, and dozens of other factors that successful people often don't acknowledge. Elena nodded slowly. I want you to recognize that when you use your success to make other people feel inferior, you're ignoring all the help you received along the way. Okay. And I want you to consider how you'll treat people differently if you get a second chance. Elena was quiet for several minutes, processing what I'd said. Finally she spoke. If you gave me another chance, I would never post anything like that again. I would be more thoughtful about how I talk about success and failure. I would remember that my achievements weren't just about my own abilities. What about family members who aren't entrepreneurs? I asked. How would you treat them? I would respect that people have different strengths and different definitions of success. I wouldn't assume that business ownership is the only meaningful achievement. What about people who choose stability over risk? I would recognize that there's wisdom in both approaches, and that my risk tolerance was probably easier to maintain because I had financial backing. I opened a new document on my laptop and began typing. I'm going to offer you a new investment agreement. $50 million in funding to restructure your existing debt and continue operations. Elena's eyes widened. Really? But with conditions. What conditions? I turned the screen toward her so she could read the document I was drafting. First, I want you to publicly acknowledge that your business success was built on anonymous investment from family members who believed in you before you believed in yourself. Elena nodded. I can do that. Second, I want you to use your platform to highlight other family members' achievements. Your brother Marcus's restaurant reviews, your cousin Derek's tech innovations, your uncle's community development projects. I want you to celebrate success in all its forms. Of course. Third, I want you to implement a mentorship program through your boutiques. Partner with local community colleges and vocational schools to provide internships and business training for people who might not have access to traditional entrepreneurial networks. Elena was reading through the document carefully. This is more than just financial terms. You're asking me to change how I think about success and how I use my platform. I'm asking you to remember that privilege comes with responsibility. And if I agree to all of this, then we'll restructure your business as a true partnership. You'll know exactly where the funding comes from, you'll have input on major financial decisions, and you'll understand that your success is connected to my success. Elena stood up and walked to my office window, looking out at the city skyline. Several of her boutique locations were visible from here, their signs bright against the urban landscape. I built something real, she said quietly. Even if I had help I didn't know about, I still built something real. You did. The question is what you'll build next and how you'll use it. Elena turned back to me. I want to sign your new agreement. All of it. The funding, the conditions, the partnership structure. I want to do this right. I printed the document and handed it to her along with a pen. Elena signed without hesitation, then handed it back to me. There's one more thing, I said, pulling out my phone. I want you to delete your Instagram post from Friday night. Elena opened her Instagram app and navigated to the post. 587 likes now, with dozens more comments praising her business acumen and subtly mocking unnamed family members. She deleted it. Now I want you to post something new, I said. Something that reflects what you've learned today. Elena thought for a moment, then began typing on her phone. After several minutes, she showed me what she'd written. taking down my previous post because I realized it didn't reflect the gratitude I should have for everyone who helped make Elena's boutiques possible. Success is never just individual achievement. It's built on support from family, mentors, investors, employees, and communities who believe in you before you believe in yourself. I'm grateful for every person who contributed to this journey, especially those whose contributions I didn't fully recognize before today. #grateful, #community success, #family support. Post it, I said. Elena hit share, then looked up at me. Are we okay? I mean, as sisters. We're better than okay, I said. We're partners now. Elena smiled for the first time since she'd entered my office. Partners. I like that. Over the next week, I watched Elena implement the changes we'd discussed. Her social media posts shifted from personal achievement celebration to community recognition. She highlighted Marcus's restaurant's recent award, Derek's app launch, and our uncle's affordable housing project. She announced the new mentorship program and began partnering with local schools. Most importantly, she stopped using her business success as a weapon against family members she perceived as less accomplished. The new partnership structure worked well. Elena retained operational control of the boutiques while I provided strategic financial guidance. Revenue increased 23% over the next quarter, partly due to positive publicity from the mentorship program and community partnerships. But the biggest change was in family dynamics. Elena's new approach to success created space for everyone to be appreciated for their different contributions. Marcus felt comfortable sharing his culinary achievements. Derek gained confidence to discuss his technical innovations. Even I felt comfortable occasionally mentioning my investment work. 6 months later, Elena's Instagram post about the boutique's anniversary reflected how much had changed. 1 year ago, I thought success meant proving I was better than other people. Today I know success means lifting other people up. Elena's boutiques exists because of family support, community partnerships, and the wisdom of people who taught me that business is about service, not superiority. Grateful for every lesson, especially the hard ones. #community success, #family business, #grateful heart. The post received over 1,000 likes and dozens of comments from customers, family members, and community partners. But what mattered most to me was that Elena had learned to use her platform to build people up rather than tear them down. Success really does run in families. But only when we remember that it belongs to all of us.
I stood frozen at my kitchen window, watching in shock as my sister-in-law, Amanda, destroyed the garden I had cared for over 5 years. She stomped on my special roses with her fancy boots and ripped out the wisteria vines that had been there for over 100 years. "This ugly garden has to go," she called out happily to someone I couldn't see. "Michael says a modern design will help sell the house faster." My hands shook as I gripped my phone, recording everything. The morning sun made every act of destruction clear as she tore through the plants, ripping out pieces of history. My name is Olivia, and at 35, I was watching my husband's sister destroy not just my garden, but my family's heritage. This 1880s Victorian home had belonged to my family for 4 generations. Every plant had a story. My great-grandmother had planted the roses. The herb garden followed designs from her old journals. The wisteria pergola had been the backdrop for generations of family weddings, including mine just 6 years ago. I had worked hard to restore the garden, even earning recognition from the local historical society. But now, Amanda was tearing it all apart, and I knew why. "This place will be worth more with a new look," she shouted. "We can put in a rock garden, maybe a fire pit. That's what buyers want." Then I heard my husband, Michael, "Just get it done fast, Amanda. I want the house ready to sell by next week." Of course he was in on it. 3 months ago, he told me he wanted a divorce. What he really meant was that he wanted to start over with his 25-year-old personal trainer. I had refused to sell the house. It had been in my family too long. Since then, Michael had been pushing me, complaining about maintenance and costs. When I still wouldn't agree, he moved out but kept his key. I should have changed the locks. A loud cracking sound snapped me back. Amanda was smashing the pergola with a crowbar. "Be careful," Michael warned. "We don't want injuries." I almost laughed. He cared about Amanda's safety, but not about destroying history. But I wasn't worried. I had planned ahead. 2 months ago, when Michael started talking about selling, I contacted the Historical Society. Thanks to my restoration work, the garden was already in their records, but I took it further. With their help, I got the house and garden protected as historical landmarks. That protection order was finalized last week. Michael and Amanda didn't know yet. They were too busy destroying things to notice the official letter on the kitchen counter still unopened. I kept recording as Amanda kicked over my herb garden. "This is better than therapy," she laughed. "You should have left her years ago, Michael. Who cares about dead plants and old memories?" Michael didn't respond, but I saw him shift uncomfortably. He never understood my love for this place. To him, it was just a house to sell. This garden had survived wars, economic crises, and storms. It wasn't going to be erased so easily. My phone buzzed. A text from Eleanor, the head of the Historical Society. "Got your message. Police and preservation officer on their way. Hold tight." I smiled and kept filming as Amanda dragged her crowbar toward the old stone wall. "This ugly wall has to go too," she said, raising the tool. Then I heard sirens. Michael and Amanda froze, finally noticing me at the window. I waved and held up my phone, showing them I had recorded everything. "What did you do?" Michael demanded as police cars arrived. I picked up the unopened letter from the counter, the Historical Society's seal clearly visible. "I protected what's mine," I said calmly, stepping outside to greet the officers. Amanda's face, when she realized she had just destroyed a protected historical site on camera, was almost worth the pain of watching my garden get torn apart. Almost. The next few hours unfolded like a carefully choreographed dance. Police officers photographed the damage while the preservation official, Dr. Marcus Chen, documented every destroyed plant and structure. Amanda's crowbar was bagged as evidence, her designer boots now muddy and ruined as she stood sullenly by the patrol car. "This wisteria was over 100 years old," Dr. Chen said, examining the torn vines. "The variety isn't even available anymore. This is a significant loss to our historical botanical record." Michael paced by the gate, running his hands through his hair. "This is ridiculous," he protested. "It's just a garden. I'm a co-owner of this property. I have the right to make improvements." Actually, Eleanor from the Historical Society stepped forward. "You don't. This entire property, including the gardens, received protected status last week. Any alterations require approval from the Preservation Board." She held up a thick folder. "The documentation shows these gardens are a living museum of Victorian horticultural practices." I watched as the reality of their situation slowly dawned on my husband and his sister. The smug superiority that had fueled their destruction crumbled under the weight of official documentation and legal consequences. "You can't be serious," Amanda scoffed, but her voice wavered. "They're just plants." These just plants represent one of the best preserved examples of 19th century garden design in the state, Eleanor continued. "Mrs. Harrison's restoration work has been featured in historical journals. The property's protected status means any willful destruction is a criminal offense." I saw Michael's face pale as a detective approached him. This wasn't going according to his plan. He'd expected to bully me into selling, clear the property, and walk away with a quick profit. Instead, he was facing criminal charges and hefty restoration fines. "The Historical Society will be pressing charges," Eleanor announced, her voice firm. "The documented damage to protected historical features is extensive. We'll need a full assessment to determine the restoration costs." Amanda burst into tears, her usual manipulation tactic. "I was just trying to help my brother. Olivia's being spiteful, trying to ruin our lives over some stupid flowers." But her tears held no power here. The preservation officer continued photographing the destruction, focusing on the damaged pergola and the heritage roses that had been trampled beyond recovery. "These roses," I said quietly, "were featured in the Botanical Register of 1837. The original plants came over from England with my great-grandmother. They survived 2 world wars, the Great Depression, and countless storms." I turned to Michael. "But they couldn't survive your selfishness." A police officer approached with forms detailing the charges: willful destruction of protected historical property, trespassing, vandalism. Michael's hands shook as he read through them. "Olivia," he pleaded, "we can work this out. I'll replant everything. We can fix this." I shook my head. "Some things can't be fixed, Michael. Like trust, once these plants are destroyed, you can't just replace them. They're gone forever." Eleanor placed a comforting hand on my shoulder before addressing the officers. We'll need to document everything for the restoration assessment. Some of these plant varieties are irreplaceable. We'll have to source similar heritage specimens from botanical gardens. As if to emphasize the magnitude of loss, a piece of the damaged pergola crashed to the ground, its century-old wood splintering on impact. Amanda jumped at the sound, kindly seeming to grasp the seriousness of what she'd done. The preliminary estimate for damages, Dr. Chen announced, reviewing his notes, is approaching 6 figures. The Historical Society will require full restoration using period-appropriate materials and methods. Michael's face went from pale to ashen. 6 figures? That's impossible. The pergola alone is a registered historical structure, Eleanor explained. It requires specialized craftsmen to rebuild using Victorian techniques. The botanical specimens, particularly the lost heritage varieties, are practically priceless. I watched as the officers led Amanda to their car for formal questioning. She'd stopped crying, replaced by a shocked silence as reality set in. Her attempt to help her brother divorce me had instead landed them both in serious legal trouble. Michael tried one last time to regain control. "I'll fight this," he threatened. "You can't prove we knew about the protection order." "The letter's right here," I said calmly, holding up the unopened envelope. "Delivered yesterday. Your choice not to read it doesn't change its legal standing. Besides," I gestured to my phone, "I have video of everything, including Amanda's comments about intentionally destroying the garden to force a sale." The detective took my phone as evidence, nodding as I described the morning's events. Each piece of documentation, from the Historical Society's records to my video, formed an airtight case against them. Standing in my devastated garden, surrounded by the destruction of my family's legacy, I felt strangely peaceful. Michael and Amanda had tried to erase my history, but in doing so, they'd only ensured their own downfall. 6 months after that devastating morning, I stood in my garden watching as restoration experts carefully replanted heritage rose specimens. The Historical Society had helped source them from botanical gardens across the country, each one chosen to match the destroyed varieties as closely as possible. The pergola had been masterfully rebuilt by a craftsman specializing in Victorian structures, using traditional techniques and materials. It wasn't the same one that had hosted a century of family celebrations, but it carried forward the same historical significance. Michael and Amanda's legal troubles piled up fast. Destroying protected historical property was a serious crime, and they were facing huge fines. The restoration costs, nearly $300,000, forced Michael to sell his investments and Amanda to take out a big loan. Their plan had backfired. Instead of making money, Michael was going bankrupt. His new girlfriend left as soon as the financial trouble started. "The herb garden now matches your great-grandmother's original design perfectly," Eleanor said, standing beside me at the restored stone wall. "The Historical Society loves how authentic it looks." I nodded, watching workers carefully plant the herbs in their proper places. It's different but the same, like me. Losing my garden had changed me, but not in the way Michael and Amanda had hoped. Instead of breaking me, it made me stronger. My work on the restoration gained attention from historical preservation groups across the country. I was invited to speak at conferences and had even started helping others restore their gardens. "You've turned this into something incredible," Eleanor said. "Your documentation will help protect other historical gardens in the future." She was right. I had recorded every step of the process, creating a valuable resource for others. My great-grandmother's gardening journals, once just family keepsakes, were now part of a larger historical record. Amanda had tried to contact me several times, at first angry, then apologetic as she realized the full consequences of her actions. I ignored her calls. Some things, once ruined, can't be repaired. Michael's divorce plan had also failed. The judge did not look kindly on someone who tried to force the sale of a protected historical site, especially after destroying part of it. "The garden tours can start again next month," I told Eleanor. "The new plants should be ready by then." The monthly tours had been paused during the restoration. Starting them again felt like a fresh beginning, not just for the garden, but for me. "Oh, there's something else you should see," Eleanor said with a smile, handing me an envelope. Inside was an official letter. My property had been added to the National Register of Historic Places. Because of everything that happened, the garden had become even more important. Your great-grandmother would be proud, Eleanor said softly. You didn't just save her legacy, you made it even stronger. Looking around at the restored garden, I felt at peace. The roses were new, but they carried the same history as the old ones. The herb garden followed the same careful layout. Life, like a garden, is about growth. Sometimes destruction clears the way for something stronger. Michael and Amanda had tried to erase my past, but instead, they made it permanent. I noticed butterflies fluttering among the new flowers. Nature doesn't dwell on loss. It focuses on what's growing. I decided to do the same. Time to plant, I said, picking up my tools. The Historical Society had approved a new section in the garden to tell its restoration story. Future visitors would learn not just about Victorian gardening, but about the importance of protecting history. As I knelt in the soil, continuing the work my great-grandmother started over a century ago, I felt grateful, even for the destruction. It had shown me my own strength. Some things, once broken, come back even stronger. My garden was proof of that. And so was I. I was having lunch with my coworkers in Seattle when a notification popped up on my phone. I checked the security camera and my heart raced. My mother-in-law, Diana, was in my house, telling movers where to put her things. This goes upstairs, she said, pointing to the master bedroom. Be careful with that mirror. It's a family heirloom. She walked around like she owned the place, her fancy handbag swinging on her arm. My name is Olivia, and I'm 34 years old. While I was away on a work trip, my mother-in-law was moving into my house. And the worst part, she didn't know I could see everything. Andrew needs his mother close by, she told the movers, rearranging my furniture. This house is too big for just him and his wife. They're barely here anyway. I muted my phone, left the table, and stepped into a quiet corner of the restaurant. With shaking hands, I called my husband, Andrew, straight to voicemail. Back on the security feed, I saw Diana moving my things, replacing my photos with her own. Then she opened my closet and ran her fingers over my clothes. These will need to go, she said. I need space for my things. I had installed the security cameras for peace of mind while traveling. Now they were showing me exactly how far Diana was willing to go. She had never liked me. To her, I was just the career woman who stole her son. She wanted me out of the way. Then she made a phone call. Darling, she said sweetly, everything's going great. You were right. Olivia being away makes this much easier. We'll have everything settled before she gets back. I froze. Andrew knew. He had been the one pushing me to take this trip. Had he planned this? The house needs a real woman's touch. Diana continued, placing an ugly vase on my table, not someone who's always busy with work. I ended the video and texted Andrew, hope you're having a good day. Quick question. Why is your mother moving into our house? Then I called my lawyer, Julia. She had helped me protect my home before when Diana tried to refinance it without my permission. Julia, it's happening again. But this time, I have it all on video. Send me everything, she said. And don't let them know you're onto them yet. Let's see how far they'll go. Andrew finally texted back, Mom's just storing some things. Don't make a big deal out of it. Storing things? I checked the cameras again. Diana was putting her fancy china in my kitchen, while my cookware was packed in boxes labeled, Donate. I texted Andrew again. Storing things doesn't mean boxing up my stuff and changing the whole house. His reply came fast. You're overreacting. Mom's condo is being renovated. She needs a place to stay. I told her it was fine. I took a deep breath. Julia's words echoed in my mind. Don't tip your hand yet. How long is a while? I asked. We'll talk when you get back. She's just trying to help. Help. Right. Like when she tried to make Andrew sell the house so we could move closer to her. Or when she told people our house was too big for a couple without kids. On the camera, I saw movers bringing in a whole bedroom set. This goes in the master bedroom, Diana said. That furniture can go to the garage. My furniture, my bedroom. I sent the video to Julia and checked my calendar. I still had 3 more days in Seattle. But I decided to go home early. My phone buzzed again. Andrew. Mom says the movers are almost done. She's excited to make the place more homey. Maybe this will help you want to spend more time there. I stared at the message, feeling a mix of anger and sadness. After 7 years together, 5 of them married, Andrew was still choosing his mother over me. But this time, I had proof. I replied with a simple and moved my meetings. I'd be home in 48 hours. Let Diana think she had all the time in the world to settle in. Let her believe she had one. Because this time, I wasn't just going to stop her, I was going to make sure she never tried this again. I sent one last message to Julia. I'll be home tomorrow night. Get everything ready. It was time to show my mother-in-law whose house this really was. I arrived home at 9 p.m. the next evening, parking my car a block away and walking silently up to my own house. The lights were on, and through the window, I could see Diana lounging on an unfamiliar floral sofa where my modern sectional used to be. She was talking on the phone, gesturing animatedly. Instead of going in, I circled to the side of the house, opening my security app. Diana's voice came through clearly on the indoor cameras. Yes, she texted Andrew about it, but don't worry. He handled it just like we discussed. She laughed. You should have seen how fast the movers worked. All her modern furniture is in storage. Well, most of it's marked for donation actually. This house needs a proper family atmosphere. I switched cameras, watching her walk into my kitchen, now filled with her ornate china cabinets and vintage decor. Of course she'll be upset, but what can she do? Andrew's name is on the house too. If she makes a fuss, well, I've already spoken to my friend Margaret about a position for her in California. Much better career opportunity than what she has here. My hands clenched into fists, so that's why Andrew had been pushing me to consider that job transfer. Another one of Diana's manipulations. Trust me, once everything's settled, she'll have no choice but to accept it. This house is far too big for someone who's never here. Andrew needs his mother, not some career-obsessed wife. Whoa. I'd heard enough. Time to make my entrance. The look on Diana's face when I walked through my front door was priceless. She froze mid-sentence, phone still pressed to her ear, face draining of color. I'll call you back, she stammered, ending her call. Olivia. What a surprise. We weren't expecting you until Friday. Clearly, I set my bag down, looking around at my transformed living room. You've been busy. She recovered quickly, smoothing her expensive blouse. Just helping to make the place more comfortable. Andrew agreed it needed a woman's touch. Interesting. I pulled out my phone, holding it up. Because I've been watching you move in all day yesterday, and I don't recall any discussion about donating my belongings. The color drained from her face as she realized what I meant. Her eyes darted to the small security camera in the corner, the one she hadn't noticed during her takeover. Those cameras are recording. Every minute, including your little phone conversations about forcing me to transfer to California. I smiled sweetly. Would you like to see the footage? She drew herself up, trying to regain control. This is Andrew's house too. He wants me here. Actually, I pulled an envelope from my bag. We should talk about that. But maybe we should wait for Andrew. He should be home soon, right? Diana's eyes narrowed. He's away on business until next week. No, he's not. I sat down in one of her antique chairs, making myself comfortable. I called his office this morning. Interesting how his business trip got canceled right when you decided to move in. Almost like it was planned. As if on cue, we heard a key in the lock. Andrew walked in, stopping short when he saw me. Olivia, you're home early. Surprise, I held up my phone, showing the security feed. Your mother and I were just discussing her renovation project. He looked between us, uncertainty crossing his face. Look, I can explain. Mom's condo is not being renovated. I cut him off. I checked. Just like I checked the storage facility where she's been sending my things. Just like I checked the donation center that has no record of any furniture donations, despite what your mother told the movers. Diana stepped forward, voice sharp. Now see here. No, you see here. I stood up, keeping my voice calm but firm. I've watched you try to take over my marriage for 5 years. I've watched you manipulate, scheme, and undermine me at every turn. But this, moving into my house while I'm away, disposing of my belongings, planning to force me into a transfer? I turned to Andrew. And you? Lying about business trips, helping her plan this behind my back. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? He had the grace to look ashamed. Mom said, she said you were never here anyway. That the house was too big for just us. That maybe if we had more family around. So you decided to let her move in without discussing it with me, your wife? Diana cut in. A wife who's never home. Who puts her career before family. Andrew needs to make a choice. I interrupted, opening the envelope I brought. Right now. I pulled out 2 sets of papers. Option 1. Diana moves out immediately. Everything goes back exactly as it was. We go to marriage counseling, and we set some real boundaries with family. I laid down the second set of papers. Option 2. Diana keeps the house. And you keep your mother. But you lose me. Andrew stared at the divorce papers, face pale. Olivia, you can't be serious. Oh, I am. And before you both start plotting, you should know, Julia has copies of everything. The security footage, the recordings of Diana's phone calls, documentation of every item removed from this house. One call from me, and it all becomes evidence in a very public divorce case. Diana's face had turned an interesting shade of purple. You wouldn't dare. Think of the scandal. Try me. I stood up, grabbing my bag. I'm going to a hotel. You have until tomorrow morning to decide and to get every single piece of furniture back where it belongs. If not, I gestured to the papers. As I walked to the door, I turned back one last time. Oh, and Diana, the cameras are still recording, just in case you get any more bright ideas. I left them standing there, Diana sputtering with rage and Andrew looking lost. For the first time since this began, I felt in control. Let them squirm overnight. Let them realize exactly who they were dealing with. Because one way or another, this power play would be Diana's last. I spent the night at the Marriott downtown, watching the security feeds on my phone. Diana and Andrew argued for hours after I left. She tried every manipulation tactic in her arsenal: tears, guilt, accusations. But something had shifted. For the first time, Andrew wasn't immediately jumping to defend her. Around midnight, my phone buzzed with a text from Andrew. Can we talk? Please. I replied simply, tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., bring your decision. I barely slept that night, alternating between checking the security feeds and wondering if I pushed too hard. But watching Diana bark orders at the movers she called back to fix this mess reminded me exactly why I'd taken this stand. At 8:45 the next morning, I pulled up to our house. The moving truck was gone, and through the windows I could see my furniture back in place. It wasn't perfect. Diana's sense of decorating still lingered in a few spots, but it was a start. Andrew was waiting on the porch steps, alone. Mom's gone, he said as I approached. I drove her home last night. I nodded, unlocking the front door. The house smelled like furniture polish and Diana's overwhelming floral air freshener. But underneath that, it still felt like home. I'm sorry, Andrew said, following me inside. I know that's not enough, but I am. I should never have gone along with her plan. No, you shouldn't have. I sat down on our restored couch. The question is, why did you? He sank into the chair across from me, looking exhausted. She has this way of making everything sound reasonable. She said you were always traveling, that the house was too empty, that having her here would make it feel more like a family home. And I guess I've never been good at saying no to her. I noticed. I pulled out my phone, showing him the recordings from yesterday. Listen to how she talks about me, Andrew. About our marriage. She's been trying to push me out since day one, and you've let her. He watched the footage, wincing at Diana's words. I didn't know she was planning to get rid of your things, or about the California job. You have to believe that. I do, I said softly. But that's almost worse. You were so busy trying to keep your mother happy that you didn't even question what she was doing to your wife. Tears formed in his eyes. I don't want to lose you, Olivia. Please, tell me how to fix this. I pulled out a business card. This is Dr. Matthews. She's a marriage counselor who specializes in family boundary issues. I made us an appointment for next week. Hope flickered across his face. You're willing to try? On 3 conditions, I held up my fingers. 1. Diana returns her key and never gets another one. 2. We set clear boundaries about visiting. No more surprise appearances, no more manipulating our schedules. 3. You commit to the counseling. Really commit, because this is your last chance, Andrew. I love you, but I won't be your mother's doormat anymore. He nodded, reaching for my hand. Anything. I choose you, Olivia. I should have chosen you all along. My phone buzzed. A text from Diana. I hope you're happy. You've turned my own son against me. This isn't over. I showed it to Andrew. His jaw tightened as he read it. Actually, he said, taking my phone, it is over. He typed a response. Mom, Olivia is my wife. Either you learn to respect that, or you won't be part of our lives. Your choice. He sent it before I could stop him. There. Should have done that years ago. Diana's response was immediate, a series of shocked emojis followed by a long paragraph about ungrateful children and manipulative wives. Andrew silenced the phone. She'll calm down eventually, he said. And if she doesn't, well, that's her choice. I leaned into him, feeling the tension of the past 2 days start to fade. You know she's going to tell everyone how I cruelly threw her out and turned you against her. He laughed softly. Let her. We have video evidence showing exactly what happened. Although he glanced at the security cameras, maybe we should upgrade the system. Just in case. Already done. I smiled. Julia helped me install a few more cameras yesterday, including one watching the back door, Mom's favorite entrance for surprise visits. Andrew pulled me closer. I really messed up, didn't I? Yes, I said honestly. But you're fixing it. That's what matters. Over the next few weeks, we worked hard to rebuild our trust. The counseling sessions were tough but necessary, helping Andrew understand his mother's manipulation patterns and teaching us both how to set healthy boundaries. Diana tried a few more times to regain control, surprise visits, tearful phone calls, even a dramatic medical emergency that turned out to be a mild headache. But each time, Andrew stood firm. Our house slowly became our home again, free from Diana's influence. And every time I walk through the door, I smile at the small security camera in the corner, my silent guardian against any future power plays. Sometimes the best defense isn't just being prepared. It's being willing to stand your ground, even against family, especially against family. Jessica smiled sweetly, but I could hear the fake kindness in her voice. She waved a hand around my bedroom, that now looked like a pink and gold influencer's dream. Daniel said I could redecorate. Something more fitting for a younger woman. I stood in the doorway, my stomach twisting. The soft green walls I had chosen were now bright pink. My vintage furniture was gone, replaced with flashy decorations. Even my family photos had been removed, replaced by Jessica's selfies. You've been busy, I said calmly. But I don't remember giving you permission to change my bedroom. Jessica smirked and stretched out on my bed, now covered in a glittery comforter. Oh honey, she said smugly. Daniel said you'd be moving to the guest room. We need the space, especially with the baby coming. I froze. But then I saw the look in her eyes. She was lying, trying to take over. I had seen women like her before. The baby? I asked, watching her carefully. Well, she hesitated. We're trying. Daniel wants to start fresh, with someone who can actually give him a family. That was a low blow. She knew about my struggles. Daniel must have told her. The pain hit me, but I pushed it aside. I had more important things to deal with. Interesting, I said, walking to the bookshelf. My books were gone, replaced by her makeup and social media awards. Daniel loves what I've done. We're thinking of redoing the whole house. Something more modern, less old. She gave me a fake sympathetic look. I was 37, hardly old. But to her, at 23, I probably seemed ancient. She kept bragging. We're even making a TikTok room. Daniel supports my influencer career, unlike someone who was too busy with real estate. I smiled. My boring real estate job had taught me a lot, especially about contracts, property, and ownership. That's quite a plan, I said, stepping into the bathroom. Even here, Jessica had covered everything in pink crystals and makeup. Jessica leaned against the door. Daniel says this is my house now. No need for divorce papers or splitting property. You should just leave quietly. I turned to her, meeting her gaze. She really thought she had won. Actually, I said, pulling out a folder from my bag, we need to talk about something important. Jessica frowned. What's that? The property deed, I said, placing the papers on the counter. She grabbed them, her nails tapping against the pages. I don't understand. Daniel said the house was in his name. Daniel says a lot of things, I replied. But 2 years ago, when he was too busy to read what he was signing, he transferred the house to me. This house is mine. Her face turned pale. But he said. I'm sure he told you a lot. I continued pulling out my phone. Like how he was separated, that I was cold and heartless. Did he also mention the private investigator I hired 6 months ago? Her eyes widened. What? Or the hidden cameras? I swiped through photos. The ones that caught you sneaking in, trying on my clothes. That's not, she stammered, stepping back. And I bet he didn't tell you about his grandmother's trust fund. The one that says if he cheats, he loses everything. I smiled. That fund is worth way more than his medical practice. Jessica sank onto the bed, her confidence fading. He said you'd just leave, she whispered. I picked up my papers. Well, here's what's actually going to happen. The next morning, I sat in my lawyer's office watching Jessica's latest TikTok livestream on my phone. She was tearfully explaining to her followers how she'd been deceived and manipulated by an older man who promised her the world. Funny how quickly her story changed when she realized she wasn't getting my house. Everything's in order, Amanda, my lawyer, said as she organized the final documents. The cease and desist has been delivered to both Jessica and Daniel. She has 24 hours to remove her belongings from your property, and he's been formally notified of the trust violation investigation. I smiled, thinking about how Daniel had stormed into the house last night after Jessica called him crying. His face had turned an interesting shade of purple when I played the security footage of him promising her my house. How dare you, he'd shouted. You set me up. No, Daniel, I'd replied calmly. I protected myself. There's a difference. Now, watching Jessica's dramatic social media meltdown, I felt oddly peaceful. The last 6 months of gathering evidence, staying quiet, and planning my response had paid off perfectly. His grandmother's trust executor is reviewing the evidence, Amanda continued. Given the extensive documentation we provided, they'll likely begin the forfeiture process within the week. I nodded, remembering the day I'd discovered the trust's adultery clause. It had been purely accidental. I was helping Daniel organize old family papers when I found it. He'd never bothered to read the fine print, too busy building his reputation as a brilliant surgeon to care about legal details. My phone buzzed with a text from Daniel. You've ruined everything. I hope you're happy. I showed it to Amanda, who rolled her eyes. He still doesn't get it, does he? He ruined everything himself. You just made sure you were protected. Speaking of protection, I said, what about the house renovations? Amanda grinned. Already handled. I've sent invoices for all damage and unauthorized changes to both of them. The pink paint, the removed fixtures, even the stick-on crystals in the bathroom. They're legally responsible for returning the property to its original condition. My phone buzzed again, this time with a call from Daniel's mother, Elena. I've been expecting this. I put the phone on speaker. What have you done? Elena demanded without preamble. Daniel is devastated. That trust was his inheritance. Hello, Eleanor. I replied calmly. Yes, it was his inheritance. Right up until he decided to move his mistress into my house. She's young, she made a mistake. And Daniel? Well, men have needs. Men have needs. I repeated, sharing a knowing look with Amanda. Does that include the need to give away houses they don't own? Eleanor sputtered. He built that house. No, Eleanor. He paid for half of it. I paid for the other half, and then 2 years ago he signed full ownership over to me. Would you like me to send you the documentation? There was a long pause. Eleanor had always respected paperwork and proper documentation. It was one of the few things we had in common. Send it, she said finally. And the trust documents too. After I hung up, Amanda handed me another folder. The property restoration company can start next week. They'll remove all of Jessica's changes and return everything to its original state. Actually, I said, thinking about the garish pink walls and tacky decorations, I might want to make some changes of my own. It's time for a fresh start. Amanda smiled. That's what I like to hear. Oh, and one more thing. She pulled out her phone, showing me Jessica's latest social media post. The young woman was tearfully packing up her influencer awards, her makeup streaked dramatically down her face. Guess she's not getting that TikTok room after all, I mused. Just then, my phone lit up with a text from Jessica herself. I'm sorry. I didn't know about the trust or the house. Daniel told me you were already separated. I showed the message to Amanda. Should I respond? Actually, Amanda said, using my favorite word of the week, I have a better idea. I raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Amanda had been my lawyer for 5 years, and she'd never steered me wrong. The trust executor wants to interview everyone involved, she explained, including Jessica. Maybe it's time she learned exactly what else Daniel has been hiding. I thought about the other evidence I'd gathered, the messages to other women, the secret accounts, the pattern of manipulation that stretched back years before Jessica entered the picture. You know, I said, that actually sounds perfect. As I left Amanda's office, I felt lighter than I had in months. The house was mine, the trust was being investigated, and Daniel's carefully constructed world of lies was crumbling around him. My phone buzzed one last time, another message from Daniel. We need to talk. Please, I made a mistake. I looked at the message for a long moment, thinking about all the years I'd spent trying to be the perfect wife, supporting his career, maintaining our beautiful home, and believing his excuses about late-night surgeries and emergency consultations. Actually, I typed back, we don't. Then I blocked his number and drove home to my house. My pink-walled, crystal-covered house that would soon be transformed into something new. Something that was entirely mine. The renovation company would arrive tomorrow, but tonight I had some packing to do, starting with removing every trace of Daniel and his mistress from my bedroom. 3 months later, I stood in my completely renovated master bedroom, admiring the transformation. The garish pink walls had been replaced with a serene blue-gray. My vintage vanity was back in its rightful place, and new family photos, featuring just me and my closest friends, adorned the walls. The doorbell rang, and I found Eleanor standing on my porch. Her usual polished appearance was slightly disheveled, and she clutched a thick envelope in her hands. "Can I come in?" she asked, her voice lacking its usual commanding tone. "There are some things you should know." I led her to the kitchen, also beautifully renovated, and poured 2 cups of coffee. Eleanor looked around, taking in the changes. "The house looks lovely," she said quietly. "Very, you." "Thank you," I replied, sitting across from her. "What brings you here?" She placed the envelope on the table. The trust executor finished the investigation. "Daniel," she paused, collecting herself. "Daniel lost everything. Not just the trust, but his reputation at the hospital too. Apparently he was falsifying records to meet with women." I wasn't surprised. The private investigator had uncovered multiple affairs, all carefully hidden behind fake patient consultations. Jessica spoke to the executor, Eleanor continued. "Told them everything. She wasn't the first, you know. Just the boldest." "I know," I said softly, thinking of all the evidence I'd gathered. "Why didn't you tell me?" Eleanor asked, her eyes filling with tears. "All these years you must have suspected. Would you have believed me?" I asked gently, "over your perfect son?" She looked down at her coffee, shoulders slumping. "No," she admitted. "I wouldn't have. I'm sorry." The apology hung in the air between us, bridging years of subtle criticism and dismissal. "Daniel's moving to Chicago," she said finally. "The only hospital that would hire him after everything." Jessica's social media posts about being manipulated by a prominent doctor went viral. His colleagues saw them. I tried to feel something, satisfaction, maybe, or vindication. Instead, I just felt peace. "What will you do now?" Eleanor asked, looking around at my renovated home. "Actually," I said, smiling at my favorite word, "I'm starting a consulting firm, helping women protect their assets and document suspicious behavior. Turns out there's quite a demand." Eleanor nodded slowly. "Yes, I suppose there would be." She stood up, straightening her jacket. "I should go, but could I come by next week? Maybe help you hang some new pictures?" I thought about it for a moment. Eleanor had never been the warmest mother-in-law, but she was trying now. Maybe that deserved something. "I'd like that," I said. After she left, I walked through my house, my beautifully renovated, peaceful house. The TikTok room was now a home office where I met with clients, helping them gather evidence and protect themselves just as I had done. My phone buzzed with a text from Amanda. "Just saw Daniel's mistress's new video. She's warning women about manipulative older men and promoting a legal advice podcast. Guess she learned something after all." I smiled, remembering Jessica's face when she learned the full truth about Daniel. She'd been a pawn in his game just like I had been once. The difference was I learned to play the game better. Another text came through, this time from a potential client. "I found lipstick on my husband's collar. Can you help me?" Actually, I typed back, "That's exactly what I do." Later that evening, As I got ready for bed in my beautiful restored master bathroom, I caught my reflection in the mirror. I looked younger, somehow lighter. The weight of Daniel's lies and Jessica's invasion had lifted, leaving me stronger and wiser. My phone lit up one last time, an email from Daniel's new hospital in Chicago. Regarding your documentation of Dr. Daniel Mitchell's misconduct. I smiled, marking it as read without opening it. Daniel's new life wasn't my concern anymore. I had my own life to focus on, my own success to build. As I climbed into my bed, now covered in elegant charcoal gray linens instead of tacky sequins, I thought about how different things were from that day 3 months ago when I found Jessica redecorating my bedroom. She had thought she was claiming her territory, marking her place in my life. Instead, she had given me the push I needed to reclaim everything, my home, my peace, and my future. Actually, I whispered to myself, smiling at the word that had started it all. This is exactly where I'm supposed to be. And for the first time in years, that was completely, undeniably true. The end.